second thing that bothers me is the UFO story. And the more you dig into that and talk to people with actual knowledge of it, again, that's another story where there are some, fanciful ideas floating around that are just, there's no evidence that they're true. But if you talk to people who, have actual knowledge of it that they gathered themselves, there are parts of that story that I do not understand at all that are really, really, really dark. It's so dark that I, haven't told my wife about it. I mean, I haven't verified any of this, but this is not just stuff that I read on the internet. I know you all are very, very grounded in that story, so I think I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But there's some stuff there that's just like, man, I'm not even sure what that means. There's a spiritual component there that I don't fully understand. So yes, that story bothers me. And I think, last thing I'll say, that one of the reasons that we've had all these disclosures and all these, 10 whistleblowers at this point, and it hasn't really become front page news. Part of it's suppression. Parts of the government don't want you to know about it, but part of it is the public can't deal with it. It's too far out. The implications are too profound. And I understand that. Because I've heard things where I'm just like, oh man, I don't even really want to know that.
The question is, why? Why would the U.S. government have an interest in lying about something that's visible to millions of people around the world? So many people, as you just said, have had the experience of seeing them in person. Why would they have an interest in hurting those people, calling them crazy,
right,
threatening them, et cetera? So tell us about your experience as you've pushed for more disclosure. What kind of reaction have you received?
I think the arrogance from the federal government, there's a control thing that you see in every aspect of government. Everybody in power wants to keep you out of their little circle of power.
Yeah, of course.
And I think the monetary concern is there. Could you imagine if they had something that could heat homes in the summer, in the winter, and cool them in the summer, and had zero cost? I mean, it's something that it would put everybody out of business. The war pimps at the Pentagon would have to go out of business. We wouldn't have to be in wars all over the world, which are, if you get down to it, it's about oil. It's always about oil. And so you've got the greed factor, you got the power factor, and then you got just the arrogance. The Bible talks about professing themselves to be wise that became fools.
That's right.
And there's nobody in Washington that doesn't think they're wise.
I wonder, though, for sure. So you think this is an effort to hide the existence of superior technology because it's a threat to existing industry?
I think that's part of it. And also, but it's like this. We're motorcycle guys. Say I took a brand new Indian or Harley Davidson down to back in time to the Mayflower or whatever,
exactly,
and gave it to them. They would maybe shine it. They wouldn't know how to do anything. I mean, of course, they didn't have we don't have carburetors. They wouldn't know how to do anything with fuel injection. They probably couldn't ever make the fuel high enough octane where it'd kick it off. They maybe could get it started if they got lucky at some point.
Right.
But that would be a rarity. I think that's sort of, if there is something that they don't know what it is. And I think too, they have compartmentalized this stuff. So you think FOIA, I'm going to freedom of information. Everybody says, well, just freedom of information at Burchett, go to Area 51. There's nothing at Area 51. They've moved it to Wright Pad or something else since then. But the point is that everybody in government is looking down the barrel or looking in their little area. And to their knowledge, most of those people are telling the truth. And they send it off to these. There's 5 or 6 corporations that it's been disclosed in hearings that we think probably has some of this technology, but it has been so compartmentalized that people. I mean, there's nobody alive that was around when in Roswell of '47,
That's right.
And incidents that happened in Texas and others all over the world, and so they don't really know what they're looking at. They're looking at something, and they've associated it or given it to these corporations that have a quasi-governmental connection, but they're far enough apart where I can't go FOIA. I can't go FOIA Ford. I mean, I could, but they're just going to tell me, go jump in the lake. I'm not going to tell you.
But I guess I'm stumbling over kind of the most basic claim that they make, which is that all this information is classified.
Yeah.
On what grounds could the federal government justify classifying reports of things that it's servicemen have seen.
Every time it's national security, Tucker.
But what does that mean?
I don't know, but you have a group of people that are so afraid of the industrial war machine that funds their campaigns. And you go to these, you look at all the people that stop. When I have a disclosure bill, I just want to know. I'm not saying they're out there, but we're spending tens of millions. Every department, FBI, CIA, I'm pretty sure TVA doesn't, but they probably should. But there's probably every alphabet agency in the country has a wing that's investigating these things. NASA, they are all doing it. They'll admit that they're looking at something, but then you come to them, they say they don't exist, but we need the money to do it. And now the interesting thing is
that's in the budget.
Oh yeah. And now the interesting thing is that they've seen that the opinion polls are showing that over half the people in the country believe something else is going on.
Oh, of course.
And so now they're saying, "Hey, we need money to study this." I mean, it's the cat going after its tail, really, and it's just a circular thing that they just after money, and they don't really care.
Well, of course, they don't. Well, that's for sure, but there is a process by which the Congress demands disclosure, and that process has been thwarted. And I'm just interested in getting details on how that happened. So the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023, I think, required disclosure. That passed, right?
Allegedly, but again, who's going to enforce it?
So, but what did that? Do you remember what that act required?
It is. I do not believe it passed. The one that I'm thinking about did not pass in the Senate because you remember I had the bill. It was 2 pages long for disclosure.
What did it say?
And then it just said if it dealt with UAPs, UFOs, it disclose it. If a file contains it, America has the right to see it, unredacted. And Chuck Schumer's was several hundred pages long, and it was celebrated by everybody. And it set up a commission very similar to the Kennedy assassination, which here we are. 60 plus years later, and still, they're telling us this single bullet that was, and you're a gunman that they found on a gurney that was basically unscratched.
Yeah.
An hour and a half after the assassination in the hospital at Lakeland.
After going through 2 bodies.
After 2 bodies and bone and everything else, and but anyway.
So, but Schumer's solution was we needed a Warren Commission to tell us the truth about UFOs.
Who can decide, and that basically would just cover it up. And I trust America.
Why would, of course, but why would Chuck Schumer do that? Like, what's his motive? Do you have any idea?
I think his staffers drew up the bill, and I think honestly, in their mind, they probably thought it was the right thing. But here's my thing about staffers. Everybody wants to talk about the swamp, and I always go through this. A swamp is something pretty cool. God created a swamp. I grew up frog gigging and fishing and around swamps. They're pretty cool. They attract animals for good reason. And so Washington D.C. is not a swamp. It is a sewer. It is a man-made creation. Now figure this: you've got a staffer. And Republicans, we're supposed to be less government. I look at these, we get these pictures made every year, every couple of years. I don't know why. I've never seen the picture. I'm not going to hang it up in my dadgum office of your committee, and all the people on the committee, and then all the staffers behind it. I counted one time on ours. I think it was close to, in one of my committees, close to 50 people. And I guess for the Democrats, we get 49 people. We're supposed to be less government. So you have a staffer say that is, and the committees are just too big. And too many of these chairmen, the biggest mistake they make is, we're going to be different. We're going to be different. And what do? They keep almost every dadgum staffer. And the staffer is already plugged in with the lobbyists, with the K Street crowd. And they're the ones probably getting a little trip somewhere, maybe going out for a steak dinner, going out for drinks, and they're compromised. And so I can't tell you how many times I've seen a good bill become a study bill.
I completely agree, except in most cases, it's like obvious why industry would want to subvert the legislation. Like they don't want the regulation, they don't want competition. There are a lot of different obvious reasons, and you sort of see how the staffers are paid off. I get it. But UFOs, like, is there a UFO lobby? Like,
well, there's that.
Who wants that? Who's paying for that?
I think,
and why?
I think you've got major technology corporations, aeronautics, some of our missile defense people. For some reason, they do not want this released.
That's very weird. because whatever's going on is clearly or would seem to be a threat to them.
Well, look at the.
You don't control your airspace, which we don't.
Right.
Why is that not a problem for Raytheon?
Look at the financial disclosure of the people that always fight me on these bills. That's what I would tell you to do.
And if we were to do that, I can think of one.
You see the names of a couple of those corporations.
So it's defense contractors are the bottom line is. I think what you're saying is that the defense contractors, for some reason, we can only speculate, don't want this information disclosed.
That's correct.
Well, that's a very powerful lobby, of course.
It's one of the most powerful ones. That's why we're sending $600 million to Ukraine and the National Defense Authorization, which I didn't vote for. I wanted to give our military more money, military fighting men more money, but I didn't want to give the war pimps any more reason to Ukraine or any of these other wars we're in.
No.
And the interesting thing about the $600 million, I was told by our leadership and in our conference that the president had requested that. And then I talked to the White House, and guess what? The president had not requested that.
Right. No, that's right.
Just $600 million, so Burchett. What are they going to do with that?
I watch people jump. I mean, I'm not the world's great Trump expert, but I feel like I paid pretty close attention. I hear these people jump up and down. Trump, this is in the name of Trump. It's like, that's the opposite of what I think he wants, but whatever.
I've had them try to use it against me in campaigns and things, but we don't ever raise enough money to matter anyway.
Use against you in campaigns.
Yeah, and the whisper campaign, or they put it on the internet. Burchett's, all he cares about is this. No, I just care about where's the tens of millions of dollars going. I have a right to know.
Well, also, this is the biggest story in human history.
Yeah,
I would think. I mean, what is that?
Are we alone? Yeah,
clearly not. And so you're satisfied, just to get to basics here quickly. You're satisfied that whatever we're seeing in the skies and have since at least the Second World War, since at least the development of nuclear weapons, since Hiroshima, whatever that is not foreign military.
No, because here it is. If it was Russian, I mean, honestly, Putin with his ego, he would ride bare-chested down Pennsylvania Avenue, get out of UFO, wrestle a bear on the front porch of the White House and get back in his UFO. I mean, he wouldn't be bogged down in Ukraine. If it was China, they would own us. They clearly partially own us now. And if it was America, you wouldn't see Trump standing on an aircraft carrier and a jet flies by and breaks the sound barrier and everybody thinks that's the coolest thing. I mean, it would be something a lot cooler than that. And so I just don't think we have that technology or we're able to utilize it.
So in the course of your probing into this, no one's ever taken you aside and said, hey, Burchett, back off a little bit. This is our stuff. We don't want to disclose it.
Pretty close to that.
But you don't believe it. You don't think this is our technology.
No, I do not. There's no way. It is no way it's our technology. There's, I've talked to too many pilots. Why would we risk our best? I mean, I've talked to the best pilots in the world that are ours. Some of them, not all of them, and that have told me. I mean, one guy, I remember I was at the Capitol Hill Club. It was just an unusual encounter. A guy spoke to a group and he followed me out and said, Tim, or congressman or whatever, he said that thing was 14 feet. He went like this from my canopy. And I thought to myself, why didn't he say 15? Why didn't he say 20? But he said 14. And then he said this thing, it wasn't ours. He said, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't ours. And that's all he said. And I had a very high-ranking member of the Navy describe some underwater experiences they'd had with something that was doing 200 miles. And the best thing we got is probably 40.
It was doing 200 miles an hour underwater?
Underwater, big as a football field. And that's no fish.
So is it possible, given our current understanding of physics, for any man-made machine to go anywhere near 200 miles an hour underwater?
Not with our technology, no. The best we have is probably in the high 30s. And he was converting it. Of course, knots is what the Navy guys would do, but there's nothing.
If I fire a 30-06 or any high-caliber rifle underwater, it doesn't go 200 miles an hour. I can probably catch it in the length of a swimming pool or so.
Yeah, or it just falls down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's like...
So we've got, and this was described to me in areas, and I was quoted on some. I was just all I do is quote people that have knowledge. But this was one that was he was talking about there are 5 or 6, I think, deep water areas of the ocean. You've traveled a lot. I have not. There's not a lot of deep water areas around East Tennessee at Fort Loudon Lake or anything, but they're talking miles deep. And of course, you've heard this before. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do the surface of the ocean. And he said these are areas where we see a high propensity of these UFOs. And there was a case where it was fairly well documented. They had multiple sightings. They were doing a maneuvers and had the ships or boats or whatever you want to call them out there. I'm not a Navy guy. And there was the sighting in the air, and the pilots radioed back and said, "Hey, is there something going on? Is there another operation? We got some secret technology stuff we're working on." They said, "We don't have any." And they, Pentagon, nobody knew about anything. And they pulled it back, and then they pulled everything back, scrubbed the mission. And then the next day, all their internet traffic had been scrubbed. But this guy was kind of a wonk, and he'd made copies of it. But the point I have there is, why would we risk multi-million-dollar apparatus? And why would we put something in the air around our best pilots that could have a crash? Because these guys are talking about there's actually, they've come close to collisions. Why would they do that? They would not do that. No. That would be stupid. No, there's even, I always say military intelligence, a whole lot like congressional ethics. I don't think it really exists much anymore.
Yeah, I've noticed.
But anyway, it's I just don't think that we'd be risking that. So that's my proof that it's not ours.
So how many military personnel have you spoken to about their personal experiences with these things?
I'd say, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10 maybe. But I have to be real careful because I'm clearly somebody out there, and I'm not backing down on it. I'm not ashamed of it or anything, but
You have no reason to be ashamed of it.
No.
Why would you be ashamed of it?
Well, that's what they try to do, is they try to shame people.
Oh, are you hiding relevant secrets from the American public? I don't think you are.
No, but
why aren't they ashamed?
Well, I have to be careful about the white flags, the stuff people bring me that's not real.
That's why we're talking to you.
Yeah, well, I've
had a lot of people come to me with stuff like that.
Yeah, and I got these pictures, and I want to show you this. I've got this. I'm always afraid I'm going to end up in a refrigerator up in North Carolina, or a freezer in North Carolina somewhere, because I'm not going up there and checking out some guy's finds he's got, But
do you think? So I think what you're saying is the disinformation campaign run by whomever. Maybe
it's real.
Well, it's definitely real, and I assume it's run by the U.S. government or its satellites and the defense contractors, but part of the way that they discredit people who are interested in finding out what this is by telling them false things, and then
they tried to destroy their careers. They did that to one of our guys. One of the very first person, the first hearing we had, if you remember, some weekly newspaper reporter found out that one of the guys suffered from PTSD because of his military career. You know what? In Tennessee, we embrace that. My daddy fought on Peleliu in Okinawa. And to the day he died, I never woke him up over the top of him. I always woke him up by his big toe, because he might have woke up on one of those dadgum islands and pinned me up against the wall.
I believe it.
And we celebrate our heroes. But Washington, D.C. just destroys them. And to think that a weekly newspaper found out this guy's medical history, which is a total violation of the law, somebody should go to jail for it, but nobody did. They tried to destroy this guy. And that's what happens to people in Washington, D.C. That's what happens to our military heroes when they step out of line because of the sewer or deep state or whatever you want to call it. But that's what they have. And that's why we need real whistleblower protection for them.
Well, I agree with that completely, which we don't have.
No.
And by the way, I know 2 whistleblowers who are living outside the country because they can't come to the United States.
Sure. And I'll have people I've had people call me. One last thing, I'm in the Longworth building. It's no secret. It's public record. But I've had people that'll call me or send a message to me and want to come by, and they won't come in that building and ask me if I can come outside. I've had people call me and want to come to the house in East Tennessee, and because they don't want to come to Washington, D.C. and talk to me. There's a well-publicized television show that was on for a while that I didn't know they were coming. I mean, they said some people wanted to talk to me, and it was a trusted friend. And I said, sure, send them. bring them up, come on up to D.C. And I said, well, they don't want to come to D.C. And they drove from wherever to my house in East Tennessee on a Saturday afternoon. And then they put some stuff on a screen that was pretty compelling.
What was it?
It was aircraft flying at just crazy stuff that we can't do that would turn you or me into basically a catch-up package. It was not...
no human being could handle the G-force.
No, not at our... Well, with the technology we have, the G-force would just have torn them apart. And, was it unmanned or whatever? I don't know. But these guys, and one of them was they were scientists. Several of them were scientists. And
they came to see you.
They came to see me, yeah. And because it's kind of...
Wait, so what do you do with that information?
I try to grasp it within my very small brain. And what am I supposed to do with that? I ask God all the time, what do you want me to do with this stuff, Lord? And right now, I'm just got to get enough disclosure. I've come to the realization that nothing is ever going to happen, Tucker, until we have somebody in the White House that says enough is enough and just discloses it. And I hope President Trump, I have discussions with him privately and other times that I'm not, I've talked to his people, but at some point, there's several of us, Luna and myself and several others that are concerned about this issue, and we want some answers.